Hey, this is Attorney Walter Hnot III. We're going to be going through and doing videos right now of the top 200 Social Security disability hearing questions that you are likely to hear in a Social Security disability hearing. Now, I know a lot of you guys have watched all the way 1 through 40 at this point, so now we're going to be going ahead and doing 41. 41 is, how often during a 7-day week do you have medically bad days, and how do you recover from them? Okay, so notice how I didn't focus on the how many good days do you have and how many bad days do you have. I want to leave it open so that if I ever need to make a statement in the future or have the claimant make a statement where, they have middle days or good days, I can define what good days are versus, neutral days versus basically bad days. I want to leave that open because if I say how many good days do you have and how many bad days do you have, the expectation is that on the good days you could work and on the bad days you can't. And if you're saying, I have 2 bad days a week, guess what? 7 days, 5 days you're working. All right, so let's look at this real quick. How often during a 7-day week do you have medically bad days? All right, so what we're looking for here is what defines a medically bad day. Okay, so it's not easy to answer this question. I want to kind of break it down into the simple things. First, you've got to define what a bad day is. A bad day is where you can't work or do household functions. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. You can't work and you can't do household functions. So you're probably not already working. So you'd say, I can't work, but I want to take you into why I can't do household functions. Because of my medication, it makes me dizzy and I have a hard time standing, which is why I can't do any vacuuming, mopping. I have to be holding on to something like a crutch, a cane, a walker, a wheelchair to help me ambulate. Or for example, I have difficulty with being able to concentrate on the details of something. So for example, it could be, trying to do a recipe or make some food. Now, the world is changing, and we all know that. Microwavable foods are becoming basically the modern thing. Fast food is slowly dying away. Microwavable foods are replacing them. Seated restaurants, everything's going away. I mean, Ruby Tuesdays is difficulty. TGI Fridays is having difficulty. Chili's is having difficulty. Hooters just shut down. All these places, basically, the seated restaurant identity, that was our parents' era. They used to do that stuff, but it's not popular anymore because the prices are high and we don't have time to sit there. But what we do now are microwavable meals. So back in the day, saying I can only do microwavable meals used to mean, okay, I can't follow instructions to actually make a food. But here's the problem you're going to run into. I'm on food stamps. Okay, you're on food stamps. I can only buy cold items. Check. Okay, cool, that makes sense. I bought microwavable meals. The judge is going to want to know, well, don't you prepare anything? Oh, what about, a rice dish or something your mom would have made, something that you would have made, right? Can't you make something? Maybe eggs in the morning. There's some toast, And what they're looking for is, do you have the competence to go ahead and go through detail by detail a recipe, the instructions to create some sort of food? So that's the food identity of, good days and bad days. You're going to have to explain why you can't focus. I have difficulty remembering small things. Some days I wake up and can't remember the names of the people who live in the same house as me. I can't remember the show that comes on that's my favorite. Explaining why you're having this failing memory. Explaining why you're having concentration and focus issues. Now let's go back to the question, how often during a 7-day week do you have medically bad days? So bad days, when it comes down to the mental, it's usually your anxiety, depression, panic attacks, your bipolar, stuff like that. Could be PTSD, could be an IQ-based issue. You've got to go into, not being able to finish things that you start, difficulty communicating with other people, staying home and not wanting to be around other people, not being able to follow instructions, not being able to handle oral instruction, not being able to handle written instruction, not being able to complete things that you're supposed to complete, etc. So the point is showing in your daily activities why you couldn't do those generalized topics. Now let's talk about the physical aspect. The physical is, usually around, it could be anything, cardiac-based, respiratory-based, it could be a blood-based, musculoskeletal-based, could be a thyroid-based, it could be anything. So let's do a simple one. So let's say it's some sort of herniated disc or some spinal column-based issue or even a spinal cord issue, which is, really dicey, especially when you get into the hip area because it all splits off there. But let's talk about basically when it comes to the spine. What we're looking at there is difficulty ambulating, difficulty sitting, difficulty standing, difficulty walking, without some sort of device. What we're talking about is loss of focus because of the pain. Talking about the things you could do that you couldn't do about pain. Talking about the limitations that you have when it comes to expressing yourself. I used to be able to have all these words, these adjectives to describe pain, but now I can only remember these adjectives to describe the pain, going into detail about how you are limited in your daily functional tasks. And remember, daily functional tasks gets broken down in the following manner. Being able to wake up and do hygiene-related functions, cooking, cleaning, laundry, transportation, outside stuff like, hedging, maybe some hobby stuff like, kicking a ball around, things like that. These are things that you do on a daily basis or that a normal person would do. Okay, so that's kind of what you have to think about when you're answering. And I didn't really graph it out well for you guys, but general understanding: how often during a 7-day week do you have medically bad days, and how do you recover from them? Now, how do you recover from them? Some people would say, "Oh, medication. New medication makes me feel better. I'm better on the next day. I rest. 2 days later, I'm good to go. I surround myself with positive people. I make sure there's no people around me because that helps me go ahead and get back to a central point, and there we go." I want you to understand here, whenever you hear recover in a Social Security disability hearing, that is a horrific term that you should be very careful around. Recover. What do we mean by recover? Recover means that you have the capacity to essentially get to the point in which you could work again. You have brought yourself back to the realm of doing what you used to do if you used to work. So you want to be very careful around that idea of recover, and that's kind of a tricky part to this that I want to point out. If you're taking medication and it's healing you to the point where you can work, well, guess what? They're just going to bump up that prescription and expect you to get back to work. If you're taking days off and then going back to work, they're going to expect you to get even potentially a part-time job that pays enough with your skills, transferable skills, to go ahead and basically get back to work. So the point here is that you need to be aware of what makes your days bad days, what makes your days good days, and what allows you to return back to good days. All right, that's the whole point of this question. That's 41. Guys, if you want the most up-to-date information, shoot me an email or give me a call. If you have a question, join me live on Thursday, YouTube, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want me to do a custom video, that's fine. Shoot me an email, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much. I'll catch you a little bit later, and we'll go from there. Bye-bye.